The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
One day at a time with its failures and fears, with portion of pain and burden of care, we must meet.
Welcome to Walking Through the Language of the Heart, a journey into the Grapevine writings of Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. And now, here are your co-hosts, Chris S. and the Monty'man.
Well, greetings one and all. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to a episode of Walking Through the Language of the Heart that has been holding on for a few weeks. Chris is out doing his Chris thing, and then I got sick, and now we're back on track. But I had several emails, Chris, saying, "Hey, we're enjoying getting caught up on the other episodes." So we certainly have. We have actually, at this point, right as I'm speaking, 47 previous episodes of this workshop.
a lot to catch up on if you're just joining us.
Yeah, or 46 actually. This will be number 47. So we're really kind of switching a little bit now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going into segment 2, which I think is going to be very, very interesting. The article we're going to be reading tonight was July 1957. It's called "The Psychiatrists." So I'm absolutely looking forward to whatever Bill has to say about this, and I'm really glad that we picked back up, Monty. It's been 3 weeks, maybe 4, and I've really missed doing this show with you every Thursday night.
Yeah, me too, my friend. When you do this kind of work and you do it on a regular basis and you miss that many weeks, you do. It's like I see you every week and then poof, you're gone, and I'm alone in the corner with myself and a piece of lettuce.
Alcoholics like routine,
We do.
They like the same thing without any big surprises.
Absolutely.
I felt a little bit lost on Thursdays, even though I've been very busy. I was out in your neck of the woods. I went to an absolutely phenomenal event. Wow, was it fun?
Wow.
The Step Ashore Conference in Washington State.
Yeah, North Washington. Yeah.
It was so much fun. About 1,000 people, and the energy and the spirit of that event was. I'm not used to it. Maybe it's a Northwest Coast thing. You would know better than me.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that every single seat was filled. Every single meeting, every single thing. It was just a packed house. The whole time, like what'll happen in the Northwest is, even if it sells out, let's say it sells out 1,000 tickets and there's 1,000 seats, you're going to have 100 to 200 seats empty at any given time.
Yeah.
Not the case out there in Washington. It was on, and I had a really good time.
When I tried to get tickets to that thing, and he told me, he said, You got to reserve this thing almost a year in advance. He wasn't kidding. He was not joking. So, I may check it out this next year, just for the sake of it. It's a little bit of a jaunt, but what a beautiful drive it would be up there.
Yeah.
I have not driven that far north, but every time I drive north at all, the further I get, the more beautiful it is. So. Cool stuff.
It was great. It was great. So let's see what Bill has to say on psychiatrists. Now I will tell you that part of being involved with C4 recovery, it's the Recovery Foundation now they call themselves, right? And being like peripherally involved in the laboratory business and NCADD and all these other things, I've had the opportunity to get to know quite a few psychiatrists that specialize in addictive illness. I've gotten to know very, very well 4 ex-presidents of ASAM, the American Society of Addiction Medicine. And I've had long conversations with them about things that, Monty, you and I would have conversations about with people that are, likely to treat us at some point in time.
Right.
And I've picked up a little bit. So, I'm really looking forward to reading this article. So let's get started.
Yes.
It was years ago, and we were making our first contacts with mental hospitals. One of them was a New Jersey institution which had paroled 2 alcoholics who had found AA and had stayed sober for 6 months. Both of them had been classed as hopeless. Despite AA's unusual methods, the hospital psychiatrists were not a little impressed. Now, this is Greystone Psychiatric that they're talking about. Greystone is one of those old institutions, Monty, and I know a little bit about it because I've taken commitments into there. It's just outside of Morristown, New Jersey, which is kind of my stomping ground, right? And I've gone in there and I've participated in some of the recovery events. Now this hospital goes back to the day where pre-psychiatric medication. And what they would have to do with these psychiatric patients is sometimes they would just chain them up in the basement. I mean, it goes back to that kind of level of care. And one of the very disparaging descriptors that people told me about, when I was bringing these commitments in, is there was a term for those people who would be confined to the hallways in the basement, and they were called shuffling Augies.
Wow.
Now I hope that doesn't disturb anyone, or I hope the connotation isn't, darker than I think it is, but I understand it to be insulting and filled with stigma about addictive illness and psychiatric challenges, right? And that's what they were referred to as. And then all of a sudden Thorazine and a lot of other drugs started to be manufactured, and they came up out of the basement and could be managed a little bit better. But that was like the historical Greystone. It goes back, over a century, this particular hospital. So anyway, forthwith, the eager AA group nearby began to bombard the hospital for visiting privileges. They wanted to bring the good news to every alkie in the place. No delays allowed. The doctors weren't so sure that this was the right idea. They were still rather cautious, as they had plenty of reason to be. Well, said the AA committee, why don't you doctors come to a meeting? 2 of the psychiatrists allowed that this would be fine. They said that they would go to New York's AA group the following week. This is really, really cool. I mean, there was some participation. Understand that Bill and some of the people that were hanging around with Bill were pretty good salesmen, right? They weren't afraid of getting in front of hospital administration and telling them what, they thought was best for their alcoholic patients. But they were rather cautious. The hospital officials were rather cautious. They still are. And being someone who's been involved with the cooperation with the professionals and institutions, hospitals and institutions, committees, I understand why they're still cautious. Not every single alcoholic or not every single drug addict that's in a 12-step program is going to bring an appropriate message into a hospital.
Yeah,
they're just
sure.
not. It depends on what group they're coming from. Depends if they've had a recovery experience. It depends if they've worked the steps. It depends if they're sponsoring. They might just be going on a speaking commitment and talking about themselves for an hour, and hospital administration are going to really look at that critically, and they're going to ask themselves, what value are these people bringing in?
Yeah,
So
sure.
in the earlier days, the value that they were bringing was a recovery program. They were harping on this way of life that has revolutionized their ability to stay separated from alcohol and put their life back together. And it was about the program. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And today you can't always count on somebody carrying a message into an institution that's program oriented. It might be fellowship oriented, or it might be personally oriented, and that's not going to the professional psychiatrists are not going to see value in that. So that being said, in that period, I think we New Yorkers gathered in a parlor at Steinway Hall. With much delight, we had heard about the proposed pilgrimage of the New Jersey doctors. Meeting night finally rolled around, but in the interval, my memory had slipped a cog. I forgot all about those psychiatrists. Right after our meeting opened, the beaming AA contingent from Jersey entered the hall and slid into a back row. But even this reminder failed to jog my memory. I certainly had no reason to think that one of my life's worst embarrassments and one of its biggest lessons was just around the corner. Uh-oh. What is he going to share with us,
Oh
Monty?
boy.
The meeting's first speaker told a fine story, both grim and inspiring. You could have heard a pin drop. It was simply great. Then up got Jack. He told how he'd been a rising figure in the motion picture industry and had once earned the modest stipend of $50,000 a year. Considering his vaunted abilities, Jack had figured this to be only a starter. Then Demon Rum began to cut him down. His worried studio producer produced a psychiatrist. Grudgingly, Jack took some treatments. The results were nil, and more psychiatrists were tried. But Jack's ego, his resentments, and his drinking all remained as colossal as before. He worked himself down and finally out of the motion pictures. Not at all a surprising development. But here he was in AA sober for months. However, it soon became apparent that psychiatrists were still among Jack's pet grudges. He actually blamed them for his downfall. Well, knowing that two of them were in the room, he saw the chance of a lifetime. Now he could dish it out, and they would have to sit there and take it. Oh boy, I can see Bill squirming, right? And the New Jersey people, they're not going back to Greystone. You know what I mean?
Right.
So oh man, and listen, Monty, I have been guilty myself, believe it or not. I know this is probably very difficult for you to believe, but I have been guilty in the past of being critical toward our friends, right? In
Sure.
medicine or psychiatry or religion or whatever. I got to admit to being guilty, and it was really just immaturity and not
Yeah.
not being able to see things as they really are and see how everything interacts. Today I understand there's nothing to be resentful about. There's nothing to be afraid of where our friends are concerned. They may not see things exactly as we see them, but we're all, we all want the best for each other. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Certainly. And I've been there. And I was the guy, that I was going to straighten out everybody at that meeting, and they were going to follow the traditions the way they're written in context. Today I'm like, I don't know if it's that I'm just tired or that I've matured a little. it's like, a lot of the things that I used to argue about or try to wave a flag or beat a drum about, I really wasn't helping the cause any at all. I was just spouting my opinion,
Yeah.
and I look back at it now and go, yeah, did that really matter? Did that really help? Once in a while it would, but yeah, for the most part, these days I'm just, even in my personal life, Chris, these days, I mean, politically, it'd be people that there's some stuff going on within Christianity that I'm very concerned about. Mm-hmm. But I just don't have time to get in the middle of some of these knockdown dragouts that people are having. I just don't, and I don't see how it's helpful.
So I think in my personal case, you and I have parallel experiences in almost every way.
Yeah.
And how I look at it as is, it's part of the awakened spirit. It's part of spiritually awakening.
Mm-hmm.
You really start to see things as they really are. You prioritize things as they should be prioritized. You don't go to extremes. And I think Bill, with a lot of his writing about humility, especially like in the Step book and stuff, about his understanding of how important humility is. I think humility comes with that awakened spirit, because we're awake now. We're not walking around in a delusion anymore.
Yeah.
We see things as they really are, and that brings compassion and understanding. Seeing things
Sure.
accurately.
Sure.
So yeah, I think we both outgrown maybe our tendency to be critical of people that we don't really have any business being critical of. That it's an outside issue.
See, some listeners are going, yeah, but Monty, I listen to your other shows. You get pretty opinionated. Yeah, I'm just having fun, man.
No, we we report.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think that we judge. We bring facts to the table quite often, but
right. I don't take your inventory. I just make an observation.
Exactly. We observe and we report.
That's right.
Oh man. Okay, so this guy's going after the psychiatrist because the tables have turned,
Yeah.
And he's having a blast. So Jack proceeded to do a job on psychiatry and all its works. As a speaker, he packed a huge wallop, and he had great talent for cynical humor that now suited his purpose exactly. He tore his several psychiatrists apart one by one. Then he attacked the entire profession, their theories and their philosophies. He called them fish worm diggers. Well, I can't believe Bill's putting this down. All the while, he was screamingly funny. Through those talk was 9/10 fantasy and nonsense, it was nevertheless a real piece of showmanship. The audience was convulsed, and I thought I'd never laughed so long or so much. Jack finally sat down amid big applause. Following the meeting, the Jersey AA contingent pushed toward the platform. They looked both sick and sore, and they definitely were. Mumbling weakly, their spokesman introduced our honored guests, two psychiatrists. Oh, I felt an awful, sickening sensation in the region of my solar plexus. Just then, Jack, obviously much pleased with himself, walked up and genially slapped one of our guests on the back. "Well, doctor," said he, "how did you like them apples I just handed you?" This was the limit. I could have died of mortification. But the two psychiatrists smilingly rolled with his punch. They insisted that it had been a wonderfully helpful meeting. After all, they declared, their profession ought to be able to stand a little ribbing now and then. To them, Jack's talk had been good, clean fun, and very instructive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really good,
wow.
Really good reception that they gave this individual. This was an amazing demonstration of friendship and understanding. Under trying conditions, these maligned gentlemen had turned the other cheek. They had met Jack's tirade with courtesy, kindness, good humor, and even gratitude. It was a lesson in patience, tolerance, and Christian charity that I hope I shall never forget. As quickly as possible, I angled the two doctors into a corner and began my apologies. In fact, I ate crow. Then one of them looked at me and said, "Think nothing of it, Bill. As you surely see, some alcoholics are more maladjusted than others. We understand that perfectly." Maladjusted. That's something that we don't call each other anymore. But back in the 40s and 50s, you could be maladjusted.
Yeah. Now it's just sicker. Some are sicker than others. Not they just leave it at that. Yeah.
That can mean a whole lot of different things.
You bet.
Within a month, this very exceptional doctor opened his hospital to AA visitors, and a group began to form within the walls. Ever since that time, the psychiatric profession has continued to hold up AA's hands. And I venture to say that it is often their understanding and tolerance rather than ours which has brought about this happy state of affairs. Two more examples. In 1949, the American Psychiatric Association asked me to read a paper on AA before their annual meeting. Going further, the psychiatrists published that paper in their official journal and permitted AA to print my material in pamphlet form for public consumption. This one generous act has since brought our fellowship untold benefit. Only recently a survey was made in Los Angeles to determine how the psychiatrists in that city and county felt about AA. I'm told that they feel fine. 99% of them are for us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's better than it's going to be now. For a number of reasons, right? One of the reasons is there is a plethora of drugs that have become appropriate in the medical and psychiatric field to use as interventions of one form or another on addictive illness or alcoholism.
Yes.
And so where maybe these two psychiatrists back at Greystone didn't have any arrows in their quiver,
right?
Today the psychiatrists and the medical community are armed with many more possibilities or what they believe would be appropriate medication therapies.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're going to get 99% ever again.
No.
From the psychiatrists, and there's a huge push on for harm reduction is being seen as more viable than 12-step abstinence based recovery in a lot of the medical community. It's easier for them to implement. They understand more of it. There's more data to back it up. There's more evidence that these therapies can sometimes show really good results. So it's a different ball game than it was in 1957. You have any experience with that?
Yes, I do. So you and I both know Mr. Matt Brown from Freedom Interventions, right?
Yes.
Matt's now doing a couple of shows with me on Mondays, and he has been, and I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this, he has been a strict 12-step, abstinent based, the whole 9 yards for a very long time. But because of the work he does, some in-depth work that you and I may not do with families and, doing the intervention process, and there are several models of intervention that he has to be trained in, he's seeing things because of the fentanyl crisis. He's seeing things that they just didn't see back in early Alcoholics Anonymous. And I asked him the question that I asked you here recently. Has your view, not on harm reduction, but on MAT, on medically medication assisted treatment, has it changed at all from 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And he said, yes, it has changed. To a degree, I can't really say to what degree completely, but it has changed. And I said, I'm the same way. And we talked about a statement you made. We need every arsenal in our, in our bag that we can get. And then we talked about the difference between medication-assisted treatment and harm reduction. And there is a huge difference. And the jury's still out with me on harm reduction. It is with him too. He definitely doesn't advocate it, but he has seen, let's put it this way, he doesn't advocate it, but he doesn't completely oppose it. He has seen it work in some cases. But he's still very leery of it, and I'm still very leery of it. We have a lot of very loosey-goosey policies when it comes to harm reduction up here in the Pacific Northwest. They've passed a lot of laws that I would never have dreamed would have gotten passed. So, then there's the argument, is this enabling, or are we actually now making contact with people we wouldn't normally make contact with, and therefore we're able to offer them something they wouldn't never walk through the door to receive. And there are a percentage of people that are getting well. So it's, I don't know. I think it's a bit of a mess, to tell you the truth. I'm not real convinced.
I think we're on a big learning curve, and certainly Oregon. Certainly Oregon. You are on the cutting edge of opening up progressive policies that the rest of the country is not ready to do.
Yeah.
So in a way, what you're doing in Oregon is you're either going to show us it works or it doesn't work. Like decriminalization and all the stuff that's going on up there. And it's really going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see, what comes out the other side of that, because it might define policy for the rest of the country.
Well, one of the things that he couldn't believe, so we had Proposition 110, which was the decriminalization, and a lot of people get confused. They hear decriminalization and they hear legalization, and that is not what that means. But it was the whole concept of, you get caught with a certain amount of methamphetamine, let's say, we're going to give you a choice. You either pay a $100 fine or you get an assessment to go into treatment. Well, Matt's original concern is, okay, who's doing these assessments? Because like you and I have talked about, and the big book talks about, being convinced, right? You have to be convinced. And there are people that are not qualified to make an assessment to be convinced when it comes to certain kinds of addictions. And yet they're in those positions. And so he said, listen, I want to help train people so they can make these assessments. And he was talking to some of the legislation up here. And though this bill has been passed and they've been writing out Proposition 10 tickets to people, either $100 or get assessed, they don't have any structure in place. And they've been doing this for like over a year now. And he goes, you what? You have no structure in place? He goes, nope. They're just handing out tickets.
So there's no data. They're not following any data or any outcomes
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, they just assume from the get-go that it's going to be better than it was.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
That's like confirmation bias. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've already decided that this works, so we're going to pay attention to, the stuff that we can use that'll show it works, and not pay attention to the stuff that goes against our personal beliefs. That's
right.
like confirmation bias.
So, on paper, it looks good. In reality, well, they haven't even tested it yet.
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know. So, woohoo!
Listen. There's. I don't know if I've told you some of these stories, but because of the people that I hung out with C4, that a lot of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of work in Europe, And over in Rome, there's a group of people over in Rome that are doing some real harm reduction, serious harm reduction work. And one of our friends was over there and was being given a tour by some of the people that are heading up these harm reduction processes, right? And they're sitting on a street corner, and they said, "Why are we sitting on a street corner?" He's giving this guy a tour. He's because something's going to happen, and I want you to see it, right? So all of a sudden, somebody pulls up in a Mercedes and gets out, and he's decked out like a businessman, you could tell it's like a $2,000 suit, and he gets out of like a $150,000 Mercedes, and he's standing on the street corner, and the guy goes, "Watch this guy, watch this guy." Okay, I'm watching him. Well, up pulls a van, and what it is, it's a safe injection van. And within the safe injection van is a nurse and Narcan and fentanyl strips and all this testing stuff for to show you like that you've got a safe dosage of opiates that you're going to inject into yourself. And this businessman goes into the safe injection van and comes out a few minutes later, and the guy goes, he's a CEO of a big company, and he just got his fix, and he's going upstairs, and he's going to run his company.
Wow.
And it was mind-blowing to this guy because stigma is not the same in Italy. Making sure that people stay alive is much more important than being tough on crime. Mm-hmm. in Italy. And so now I'm not making a judgment on whether that's a great way to handle opiate addiction. I'm not, but I think it's a great way to help keep somebody alive.
Yes.
And I think that's the point of harm reduction.
I think you're right. I think so I carry Narcan in my glove box, because we live 3 blocks away from a homeless shelter, and there isn't a week that goes by where I'm wondering if the guy I'm passing is going to even make it. And usually there's an ambulance, the whole 9 yards, right? So, but I got criticized for carrying Narcan by a very well-meaning person, and they had all these opinions, and I said, you know what? Here's the deal. Let's save the guy's life, and we'll argue about it after.
Yeah.
But while you're arguing with me, this guy's dying. So I
dead
get
people
it.
don't have any chance to recover.
They don't have any chance. And so I used to be that other guy, though. Until I started doing a little bit of research and listening to some people talk and kind of opening up my mind to, do we want to be right, or do we want to save some lives? And so, yeah.
So here's another quick story for you, because I'm on a roll, and you know how it goes. So C4 was asked to go consult over in Lebanon, and this is a country that really just didn't have a lot of addiction treatment processes. They really didn't know what they were doing. All of a sudden, opiate addiction just blew up, and they had no plan or experience in handling all this.
Yeah.
So they reached out to the Americans. And here's what I found out about the Americans. Boy, do we know what works, but we can't do it because our funding systems won't allow us to, unless it's self-pay. There's no funding system that's gonna do what I'm about to explain to you. So we taught them what to do, and this is what they do. They engage early. In other words, they go to the shooting galleries, and they go to the shooting galleries with clean needles, and they go to the shooting galleries with addresses of clinics and doctors that can help them with their infections or give them blood work or whatever, right? And they engage with them right there at the shooting galleries. And hopefully the outcome is going to be someone is going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they've already established a relationship with these people, and they navigate them into a treatment center. Now, because they have different ways of funding these things, they can do the best job that can be done. And what that looks like is this: it's 2 years of treatment, intensive treatment in the beginning, that kind of backs off toward the end, where you're living in a sober community, a sober environment, and then they make sure that you are trained for a well-paid career.
Wow.
So you go from the shooting gallery, they grab your hand there, and when they let go, they make sure that you're not just a dishwasher at the halfway house or something. They make sure that you're able to make a living and take care of a family before that hand is let go.
Yes.
And that is amazing to me, because I don't see a continuum of care like that in anything we do.
No.
Do you?
No. All the years that I worked for the faith-based drug and alcohol recovery program, and I was the one that was in charge of setting up an aftercare plan 3 months before they were to graduate. That aftercare plan was in place. It was a good one, but there was no follow-up with it. And they weren't concerned about it. You know what? Well, there was follow-up. Here was the follow-up. Hi, Fred. How are you? Now, we know it's been 30 days since you graduated. Are you sober? Yeah, I'm sober.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Great. Thanks, Fred. Bye. Talk to you next month. Are you serious?
That's you can't count on that for outcome data. Only like periodic blood testing and stuff like that is going to really give you the data you need.
You know what they call that?
But who's going to pay for it? It's the way our healthcare system is structured. It's not structured for acute care and not chronic care.
Right. So I have a thought, and let's see what you think. Now I'm going to go down a roll here, and this is a bee in my bonnet. It's a hornet in my bonnet, to be honest with you. I think that the biggest reason that people who are truly addicts, I'm not talking about the drug, abuser. I'm talking about the addict, truly alcoholic, not the alcohol abuser or the heavy drinker. Those who are powerless over these substances, that when they go into treatment or when they go into AA or NA or CR or any of these fellowships, right? And they're given all these instructions and all these directions, and they have sponsors or they have counselors and therapists, and they're getting ready to move in a direction to where they make a spiritual connection with a power greater than themselves. And I'm not talking about the group, because if everybody's powerless in the group, 0 + 0 is 0, right? And I'm not talking about creation. Sorry, I'm not talking about the trees and the stars. I'm talking about with the Creator, not a make-believe God, not a clay statue, the Creator. And they're told, here's a suggestion. We highly suggest that you develop a spiritual program. But that's up to you, and it's personal, and we're just going to send you on your way. And that piece is left out because I think that is the problem. That is the core issue, right? And it's never addressed adequately. And so the person never recovers. And because they're right back to leaning on their own intellect, their own power, or the group, or whatever, and they wonder, and the family wonders, why can't they stay sober? Well, everybody's done everything, but we can't it's going to be political if we talk about God, that kind of stuff. And I think we leave them with, you could choose a God. You can create a God out of your own understanding. That's not what it says, but that's what they teach. And so they try that, and they become the creator again, and now we're back in a mess. I think that is the core problem of this whole thing, Chris.
I agree with you. There's a scale of alcoholism, and there's people that are powerless, and there's people that aren't, that show up in these 12-step fellowships or show up for treatment. And the people that are powerless are still as heartbreaking as they were back in Bill's day. Let me tell, I had a treatment center commitment last night. And let me tell you something that I said to all of them. Now this particular treatment center, recovery center that I speak at, is long term, and usually to be able to get into this treatment center, you have to have failed in 3 other ones first. It's like the last chance saloon kind of a place, right?
Right.
So I basically said this. I said, if you've just gone to meetings and you've sat in meetings and you haven't made a decision to do this as a way of life, you haven't inventoried the causes and conditions of your failure at life, the manifestations of your selfishness and self-centeredness, you haven't shared that with another person, you haven't come to terms with that God needs to be the one that removes these character defects, and become willing and then humbly ask God, and you haven't put together a list of where these character defects have harmed other people and institutions, and you haven't gone out and made direct amends to those people and institutions, and you haven't turned these first 9 steps into a way of life. You have not become disciplined at prayer and meditation upon awakening and evening review, and as you move through the day, and you haven't helped other alcoholics go through the 12 steps. You haven't given them an adequate presentation of the 12 steps, and you're not doing that. You're not doing that as an avocation. You're not supposed to stay sober. Hasn't anyone told you that? And you should have seen the looks that I got.
Wow.
You should have seen the looks that I got, because we don't tell people
We
that.
We don't.
And we should.
I know. It's crazy. We might share it in our own stories. I heard a speaker not long ago. It was great, but not once did he get confrontational because he wanted everybody to like him. I need people to say, hey, Monty, you know what? You may want to reconsider that road you're trying to make a left turn at, because I've been there. I can see around the corner, and there's a dragon down there. So let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and see what we can do to avoid this. I need people in my life like that. I need those people today. Yeah. Today I need those people.
It's called spiritual consent. We give some of the close people to us spiritual consent,
yes,
which means they can step to us and they can give us any consideration they choose. You know what I mean?
Even if they're wrong.
Monty, let's consider the fact that your gambling has gotten out of control, and you haven't been able to pay your mortgage in 3 months. Let's can we look at that? And you've given somebody spiritual consent, and you got to take it now.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal, and we need people like that. That's really one of the great things about the fellowship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's finish up this reading. It says, of course, this little story has its exaggerations. Great numbers of AAs today are very friendly to psychiatry, and no doubt equally great numbers of psychiatrists who know nothing about us or who have seen only AA failures are still against us. But this is besides the point. The point that I'm trying to make is that we AAs should try to be uniformly friendly under all conditions. That's a spiritual principle.
Mm-hmm.
Now what became of my old friend Jack? Well, Jack just couldn't make it, though he tried hard. He died 3 years ago of alcoholism. Perhaps real friendliness was something which Jack never came to understand. Wow, there's a cautionary tale.
Boy.
I want to finish up my spiel tonight, Monty, because we're on psychiatry. I want to tell you something that I experienced that was remarkable and so valuable to me, and I was so proud of this moment. All right, so I'm friends with this wonderful man. His name is Dr. Michael Miller, and he was president of ASAM, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, for a long time. Really great guy, and I got involved with him with C4, and then helped him get involved with a laboratory that we were working with, and he became a paid spokesman for us, and we got to spend a lot of time together, and he liked me and Andrea, and we liked him, and I went to one of the annual ASAM conventions. It's like, they have a big thing with 1,000 psychiatrists go to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I went there, and I was part of a crew that manned a booth, and we gave out our flyers for our service and everything. But there was because I knew Michael, he was getting like a lifetime achievement award. Okay, it was a very, very special event in a ginormous auditorium that would hold like 1,500 people. There's 1,500 seats in this auditorium. And I went in there and I sat in the back. I was going to definitely be part of this because Michael was getting his award, and they gave him his award, and he got up and he gave a little speech. And now you got to understand, this is someone who's on the top of the game for buprenorphine and methadone and Suboxone and Narcan, and you name the medication, and he trains doctors on appropriate use of those medications, right? He's been part of studies that peer-reviewed studies that track data in a granular fashion about how these things work. He's in that milieu. He gets up, and you know what he says when he finishes? He says, "I have never seen anything more effective than Alcoholics Anonymous."
Wow.
And he sat down.
Wow.
This is like the top psychiatrist in the country at that time treating addictive illness. And he didn't have to say that. He said that because it was true.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had met people like me, and a lot of people like me who, not only were abstinent, but had gained even more than just abstinence. Had gained their reputation back, had gained quality back in their life, and there was evidence in front of him that brought him to the conclusion that he'd never seen anything work more effective for addictive illness or alcoholism than Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow.
And I think that's pretty cool.
That's amazing, because I'm sure he would look at best practices and charts and statistics and look at AA, and then look at some more, and look at AA, and look at some more, and continue to go, yep, nope, AA still beats out every time.
And it's very selfless to say that, because there's no money.
Right.
When you're a psychiatrist and you lose somebody to Alcoholics Anonymous, that's that. If you're glad about it, it's because of your humanity. You know what I mean? Like your integrity is what makes you say something like that in a room filled with addiction psychiatrists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. What a great way to end this segment. Well, thank you, Chris, so very much. Looks like next week the chapter is The Physicians.
We're gonna get right into it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. All right, my friends. If you'd like to email us, please do so. Take12radio@comcast.net is our email address. Please subscribe for fun and for free on any of the podcasting platforms listed at take12radio.com. And God bless each and every one of you, and particularly those of you who have written in and said you're getting caught up on the rest of the episode. That does our heart good stuff. All right, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Chris S., and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now. For more recovery workshops with Chris S. and the Monty'man, visit our website at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof, woof.